What's going
What's
on,
going
guys?
on? How's everyone doing tonight? Hope everyone is having a fantastic night. What a week. And if you're into boxing, I mean, Ryan Garcia makes one of the biggest, in my opinion, wins that I've seen in a long time in boxing. I know me and Ross talk about this a lot, but I mean, what a time to be alive. The Miami Hurricanes, fresh off of their spring game. A lot of exciting things going on. We got a new quarterback situation. We got a very special guest on, Garrett from Football Analysis. Garrett, how are you doing, my friend? Really appreciate your time on the scoop.
Yeah, I'm doing great, guys. Appreciate you having me on. And I am not technically a Miami Hurricanes fan, but I think, really like everyone, I really want the U to be back. I think it'd be better for college football if Miami was back, and I'm really, really hoping that Mario can be the guy to get the U back.
Hey, Garrett, really appreciate the kind words. We've been waiting for 20 plus years, so hey, we feel those words a lot, man. We've been waiting a while. Garrett, tell the good people tuning in or tuning in later, kind of a little bit about your channel. It's pretty impressive what you've accomplished and the amount of success you've had. I'd love for you to share a little bit of insight on about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. What I do is I make a lot of videos regarding NFL. I mean, depending on the season, of course. NFL draft is this time of year. Whether it's prospect spotlights. I did one on Caleb Williams, did one on Drake May. Whether it's mock drafts, whether it's discussing team situations. I did one last week on the Dallas Cowboys. Their outlook concerns me a lot. And then, of course, reacting week to week based on things that happen, and then projecting things that may happen throughout the season. But no, I appreciate the words. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, for the Miami Hurricanes. We usually historically with Miami and modern day college football, and Ross, you can attest to this as well. We got a lot of guys who declare for the draft very early. It's like,
Yeah.
if you came back another year, not only do I think they would have been drafted better, but I think they would have developed a lot more. I mean, I can name a bunch of names top of my head. Um, the first name that I think of, head over to the safeties group. Cam Kitchens, James Williams. We'll talk about Cam Kitchens first. Very interesting prospect. And I say that because, I'll tap into you as well, Ross. I'm a little bit worried about Cam Kitchens' conversion to the NFL. What role is he going to play? He runs a sub 4.5 40. I'm not sure he's going to be that physical when it comes to the NFL. Maybe, he can trickle down into a free safety role, but I think it depends on the defensive scheme and what organization picks him. Garrett, overall thoughts about Cam Kitchens.
So Cam Kitchens to me is he's going to be a very team specific player. There's going to be teams that see the lack of elite speed not only on tape, but obviously confirmed with the 40 time, like you mentioned. And they're going to immediately just cross him off the board. They're going to say, we don't want anything to do with that. We don't want to even risk a guy running a 4.6 that's, less than 205 pounds in our defense. If he was 225, maybe it'd be a different conversation. Maybe you can add 20 extra pounds of a thump, if you will. But with Cam Kitchens, I think he's going to fall a little bit down the board. I think he'll end up proving to be a solid day 2 pick, but I do think Kitchens' playmaking ability absolutely cannot be ignored. I mean, he led the conference in interceptions in each of the past 2 years for a reason. And I like Kitchens' ability to be a solid role player and a good contributor throughout the duration of his rookie contract with whichever team drafts him. And that's one thing with Kitchens that, sure, his speed isn't a 4.3. Sure, he's not running a 4.38 40, but he has instincts and playmaking awareness that not a lot of other safeties do. And this is a weaker safety class as it is. So I think there is real potential for Kitchens to be a good contributor early on because, like I said, the awareness is there, and that's not something that's not going to translate. It's there, and I think he can be a key contributor from day one.
There's a player that I want to make a comparison to, and it just so happens that it's a team I follow often in the NFL. It's the Seahawks, and it's Quandre Diggs. I see a lot of Quandre Diggs in Cam Kitchens' game. We're not talking about a guy who is just, like the 40 time, Quandre Diggs was like a 4.56, I believe, or something like that. Just doesn't blow your mind or anything like that. But the football speed is there. You can see him getting from sideline to sideline, and the technical aspect, the high IQ, that is where Cam Kinches is going to succeed in the NFL, I believe. He's going to need to put on some muscle. He's going to need to wrap up. He's already a solid tackler in terms of form, but he's definitely going to need to add some muscle to bring some of these guys down, the DK Metcalfs of the world and all those kind of guys. But just in terms of technical ability, he's coming into the draft is either the best technical safety in my opinion, or the second or third best technical safety. That's not saying he's the best overall. I'm just saying in terms of the technical skills that he's coming out of college with already, which a lot of guys don't have. He's got a lot of the small nuances that a lot of safeties don't have. So I do believe that there's going to be, and like you mentioned, a specific team. He's going to have to play on a specific team in a specific system that fits him. If the right team gets a hold of him and they get a hold of him day two, even, I don't think he can get past day two, honestly. I haven't seen any way he gets past day two with how the other 40s or the other safeties are. But somebody will be happy to get him day two, I truly believe.
Oh, I absolutely agree, and I love that comparison with Quandre Diggs. I think that's a really, really good comparison, especially in terms of not just play style but career path as well for him.
Yeah, I think both those guys, the high IQ just being one step ahead, not necessarily in terms of physical speed, but in the IQ department, never hurts, especially at safety over the top.
Garrett, we're talking about Cam Kitchens right now. We're talking about potential day two pick. And we don't know. Maybe he falls into day one. Maybe there's an NFL team that falls in love with him and they're like, hey, this is our guy. But do you think if a player who declared early for the NFL draft, do you think it's a good idea for them to declare early if they are looking like a day two pick?
Well, that's a situational question, because not every guy has the same background. And there's also an advisory board that, from my knowledge of this, they give either like a round 1 or round 2 grade, or they set like, so if they give them a round 1 or round 2, if they don't, then they basically tell them like go back to school type thing. So I think that's a case by case basis. But I think with Cam's limitations personally, like on this, case by case, speaking for Kitchens here, that with the limited speed, that there's probably already a bunch of teams that have already taken him off their board. But what I would say regarding Cam specifically is I think there's going to be a team, whoever drafts him, I think that they're looking at Cam as a potential top 60 player in this class, top 50, 60 player in this class. And that they're saying, you know what, because we know that, these 3 teams are out on him, that's 10% of the NFL right there. That we don't even have to worry about him taking. So look, we can draft this receiver here in the second round. We can draft this corner here in the second round. And I think for Cam that it's like I said, it's a case by case basis. But I think with Cam, unfortunately, I think he'll slide a little bit just due to the limitations with the speed.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic, I think, because now with NIL, I feel like there is a chance for players to return to college. In Cam's situation, for example, if there were NIL opportunities for him to return another year, it would have been interesting to see kind of what went through that decision-making process if he had NIL opportunities to return another year, because, you got to do the numbers. But at the end of the day, Cam, you're taking a leap of faith when you declare for the NFL draft. We wish him the best of luck. And I think you hit it on the head. His instincts, he's a ball hawk. He led the ACC in interceptions 2 years straight. High football player with a high IQ. He's an organization fan. I think you'll find the right organization. Now, switching over to the next player we'll talk about, James Williams. I wouldn't say he doesn't have a high IQ. I think he just has elite physical athletic attributes where I'm not comparing him to Troy Polamalu, but in the sense of he can play so many different positions on the field that this guy's measurements line up as a defensive end, as an edge rusher in the league. It's insane.
Yeah, like James to me is just he's a a prospect that if the right defensive coordinator can get a hold of him and mold him the right way, I think he has a considerably high ceiling. I have his measurables right here. He's 6'4", 230, 80-inch wingspan, which is a pretty long wingspan, 4'6", 40. He didn't bench, so we don't really have an idea numbers wise of how strong he is. But I mean, you see it on the tape. James Williams to me is obviously when you're 6'4", 230 as a safety, you're going to get compared to Cam Chancellor, but I think he will transition to the linebacker position at the NFL level. But I also think that there's a spot for James in the right situation where he can play that big nickel role, and he can have that role that the Ravens' Kyle Hamilton has had. Now, obviously, when you toss elite players out like that, you need to temper expectations. I'm not going to sit here and act like that James is going to be a Kyle Hamilton impact player from day one, but a realistic path that I think for James that I think he could very easily have is a former 7th round pick that the Vikings took back in 2016. His name's Javon Cohen. Javon worked his way up from the special teams in the early parts of his career. Eventually became a starter. He started for the Cowboys, I want to say, for a year or two. And James will always have a spot on an NFL roster at minimum, just because of the special teams impact that he will be able to have. And if you can have that type of impact everywhere, that's invaluable, or that is there's no price you can put on that as an NFL team. And I saw somebody just comment about Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. That's a comment that I could not agree with more. And that's actually like where I would love for James Williams to go and essentially have Zim mold him from day one, the same way that Javon Cohen was back in the day.
When I see James Williams, I see, and the term's been used a lot, and I don't want to overuse it, but I see the chess piece type of player, the type of guy that you can put in multiple positions at multiple times throughout the same set, throughout the same downs. I mean, this guy can flat out play all over the field. What I want more than anything for him in the world in the NFL is to have a creative DC be in charge of his development from day one. That's what I want for James Williams. Not just a guy. I mean, the fundamentals, yes, James Williams needs to wrap up better. He needs to tackle better. He needs to do some of the basics a little better. But if he gets himself with a creative DC who truly knows how to use that size and speed to their advantage, he could do some absolutely amazing things in the NFL. I truly believe that. But it's got to be the right fit, man. It's just got to be the right fit.
Garrett, do you see a situation in the NFL draft where you have a player like James Williams, a freak athlete, 6'4", 230? I would feel like NFL organizations, their mouths are watering over this guy. Do you think there is an aggressive approach of getting a player like James Williams? Or maybe it's kind of like, let's try to dig deeper into any red flags we see in this player. Because, what I've been seeing so far is you're looking at a day 2, maybe day 3 guy in James Williams, and what they're saying in the NFL draft. I would think it would have been the opposite. Like, hey, no, this guy's actually a first round pick, early second rounder. That's the way I see James Williams. When I saw him graded out at like maybe the 5th round, I was a little bit surprised at that. Wouldn't you think there's a more aggressive approach towards players that have those freak, measurements where you're just like, oh my God, where do we put this guy on the field?
I definitely think there is. I think it's situational. It's it just depends on the position. It depends on where the league is going. And a perfect example of that would be Xavier Worthy, who obviously ran the 4.21. I mean, teams are going to look at that and say, we can't teach speed. Xavier, you're going to be overdrafted, but welcome to this team. But James Williams specifically, I just think that there's going to be teams that, similar in the Cam Kitchens aspect, they're just going to take him not completely off the board, but remove him from the first, several rounds of consideration, just because they're going to say, look, is he a safety or is he a corner, or not a corner rather? Is he a safety or is he a linebacker at the NFL level? I want to say on the Hurricanes website, I could be wrong on this, but I want to say he was listed around 215, but then he weighed in at 230 in the pre-draft process, with the combine and the pro day. So it's, major respect to James for bulking up to prepare for the NFL level in terms of where he's going to play, because there's not many 6'5", 215-pound safeties in the NFL. But I think there's going to be some teams that are going to say, okay, look, sure, he's got the height, the weight, the speed is solid. It's not, elite. It's not, 99th percentile by any means for his height and weight. But I think there's going to be teams that kind of just take him down the board because it's like, okay, he's going from the college level to the pro level, and he's going to kind of have to play linebacker because of, the whole being 230 transitioning to the pros aspect.
Garrett, I'm just curious. Do you think that he could have a little maybe Isaiah
Simmons? Yeah.
Yes, excuse me. Swallowed down the wrong tube there. Isaiah Simmons, exactly what I was going to say. Yes. Do you think that he could be used in that type of way?
I absolutely do. And I want to pull up James snap counts, because he was kind of used in that style, like a little bit during his time at Miami. I want to pull up the exact snap counts for James. I think that Isaiah Simmons was like, if James Williams was 4 years ago, I think that James Williams would without a doubt be a first round pick, top 50 pick at worst, a mid-second round pick. But during James' final year with the Canes here's the snap counts. He played 60 snaps along the defensive line. He played almost 300 snaps at safety. He even played 20 snaps out at corner, and he played another 250 snaps in the box. So this was a guy that I could not agree more with that Isaiah Simmons comp. But unfortunately for James, it's not easy to have a guy. I mean, the NFL is demanding both physically and mentally as it gets. And it's not easy for Isaiah Simmons to do all that. And I think that Isaiah was a better prospect coming out of Clemson than James is Miami. I still love the idea of that. And I will never not be fascinated with the idea of that, especially, when you have this unique chess piece. But there's a reason that guys like Kyle Hamilton, for example, are one of one. But I love that comp. And if you drafted Simmons on late day 2, early day 3 instead of number 8 overall over guys like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, you wouldn't complain. You know what I mean? So I love that comp for James Williams.
Yeah, just having this discussion, it seems like the overall verdict on James Williams is that he's going to have to play a different position and stick with that position than what he did in college, right? Because even in college, looking at the snap counts, they're using him at the edge. They're playing around with him at linebacker. They're going to use him at safety. So he's got to have to find a home eventually and then develop there. And, that's something where, in the NFL, you need to do. In college, you can play around because of weaker opponents. You can have fun with the offense. But, in the NFL, things are pretty established. You know who the quarterbacks are. You know who the receivers are. The other team's offense, right? You've been playing against the same guys in your division week in and week out. So, I think they're going to have to find a home for James Williams, and one organization is going to have to believe in him. Whoever gets him in the late rounds, I think it's a steal, honestly, if someone drafts him the 5th, 6th, 7th round.
I do too. I love the idea. I do love the idea of James Williams. I absolutely love the idea and the potential of him in the right place. And that's honestly for a lot of Hurricanes prospects this year.
Garrett, another interesting name that, believe it or not, coming into this year was actually very high on a lot of draft boards, but in my opinion, fell through the ladder. Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle. I was a little bit surprised that he declared for the draft. This is one of those discussions we had off camera saying, Miami notoriously is known to having guys declare early, modern day college football, and really shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to development in the NFL. What are your thoughts about Leonard Taylor? Because, I hope he made the right decision, but I think if it is a mistake, it can hurt him greatly.
Yeah, my thoughts on Leonard Taylor. This is a prospect that I've watched the tape a bunch of times. The flashes were there against Temple, against Clemson. There were times where he looks like a future, not even starter at the NFL, but an above average starter that, if you told me, by 2027, 2028, that he's a Pro Bowler, that he's getting 8 or 9 sacks on the interior, which by the way is a lot for an interior pass rusher, it wouldn't surprise me at all. but there's also times where Leonard he's not. I mean, there's plays where it's just he doesn't even look like the same guy, and it's so frustrating. And I understand teams' hesitancies with Leonard Taylor this year. I mean, I think that another year would have did him well if he could have went back. I think another year in college would have done Leonard well. But it's the elite flashes are there, and the thing the discussion that's already been had countless times in NFL, not war rooms, because the war room's more of a draft day thing, but within the scouting discussions, within, defensive line coaches and everything, is a lot of the time it boils down to, all right, we've seen what a kid can do at the college level, but how can we, maximize this on a play-to-play basis? And that's going to be the challenge with Leonard at the NFL level. Now, if you have a great defensive line coach that can maximize, I think we are talking about a legitimate day 3 steal. But if he goes to a situation that's not good for him to succeed in, then unfortunately, there's a very real possibility that 3 years from now, nobody remembers who Leonard Taylor is and that he could just flame out of the league. But I really I love the potential of Leonard Taylor, just like I do with James Williams and just like I do with Cam Kitchens.
What I see with Leonard Taylor ultimately is I see untapped upside is what I see. And there are NFL teams and there are NFL GMs that go completely nuts for untapped upside. We've seen it before. We've seen it before, especially, when guys are coming as a 5-star recruit, especially, they've got that pedigree already behind them. I will say simply the untapped upside, referring him to that, is because of his inconsistency. Mm-hmm. You can't necessarily sit here and say this guy is going to come in and he's going to do exactly this for your team. We don't know yet. We don't know what Leonard Taylor is going to do for the team that he's going to be on. He can be a wrecking ball. He can be an absolute monster out there if he wants to be. And I want to see him get with a team, not just with the DC, but with a team, with some veterans, some guys that truly motivate him, some guys that make him just love the game of football. You know what I'm saying? Just absolutely love it and truly respect the fact that he's in a position that most people would, give their leg for, So I can see if he gets in the right system with the right guys around him who can motivate him. I think motivation is a big, big key for him, honestly. If they can motivate him, he could do some nice things in the NFL, but inconsistency is scary. It always is.
But, here's the thing with that, Ross. You say motivate him, right?
Yeah.
That means that tells me, and what we saw in college is that it seems like he was unmotivated a lot, right?
There were times.
Okay, yeah, maybe it has to do with work ethic, right? I don't know what happened inside the locker room. I don't think it's ever been a personality issue with Leonard Taylor, but he never really got over that hump, right? He never was week in and week out a game-changing player. Garrett, have you seen a situation in the past where, hey, there's been guys drafted where in college they're not week in, week out, game-changing players, combine-wise, not the best stats, seem very unmotivated, a lot of conditioning issues, a lot of red flags, when it comes to workout regimen. Have you seen any guy like that, any NFL draft prospect turn it around in the pros from college?
I gotta be honest. There's none that come to mind like right away. I mean, not to say that there has been, I'm sure. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Now, there's been several project players that's a different, that's a little bit of a different thing, but there's been a lot of projects that have been in the 4th, 5th, second, third, 4th, 5th round that, had they been more polished, rather than just show like a player or two, or even a series of 2 of that untapped potential. And one that really comes to mind is Danielle Hunter of the Vikings, or now he's on the Texans, but Danielle was a physical freak coming out of LSU in the 2015 draft process. And 9 years later, we're talking about, I want to say, a 4-time Pro Bowler and a guy that has 90 career sacks. And I think Danielle's still only 29. So we're talking about a guy that could realistically have 3 or 4 more seasons with double-digit sacks, a guy that could finish with 120 career sacks, a guy that could be a Hall of Famer. I think if you have 120 sacks in the NFL, you'll be in the Hall of Fame. So I think that's a good, a project. But in terms of the work ethic, if there's any questions about the work ethic, then that to me, even if it's Caleb Williams, Andrew Luck, whoever, that is the just ultimate red flag if you have a serious question about the work ethic.
And that's kind of my verdict with Leonard Taylor is that's a guy who I think should have returned, another year of college football, regardless the situation that have occurred with him. But, I think we're just talking about a lot of red flags in Leonard Taylor, and I'd be shocked if he turns it around in the NFL, Ross. I mean, what do you think about? I mean, that's my verdict with him.
Chris Gons here made an actual real good point here. The Rams are in a very unique situation with Aaron Donald retiring and with their draft capital and with their free agency availability and all that stuff. They're in a unique situation, and they are a team that is not afraid to take a gamble, especially when they see upside that they feel matches their system. They're not afraid to take it at all whatsoever. If Leonard Taylor was in the right spot, fell far enough and was an availability, not being overdrafted by them, I could see the Rams absolutely giving a guy like him a shot for the simple fact that he's on the rookie contract. He's got the upside. They like to develop players there. They like to mold players there. I'm sure Aaron Donald will show up occasionally and give guys tips as well. So that doesn't hurt one bit. I could see him on a team like the Rams where he could be successful. Another team I could see him successful at is possibly the 49ers. That's another team I could see him working with. He ends up on a team like the Saints or something like that, man, I don't think good things will happen at all. I really don't. I don't want to see him on the Saints, Falcons, anything like that right now. I want to see him get around some guys who have experience and have success working from within the defensive line.
Another player that he delivered very consistent for the Miami Hurricanes, plays center. In my opinion, I feel like centers are very undervalued, overlooked. As a whole, it's a position really not a lot of people talk about. But, Matt Lee, transferred from UCF. He always delivered week in and week out. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I don't think it's going to be, I think he's going to be a day 3 guy. But I think he's going to find an organization, and eventually he'll be a starter there. Garrett, overall thoughts about Matt Lee. I really do. This is one guy who I'm circling in from this draft class where I think can have a very good NFL career.
No, I could not agree more. Now, Matt Lee, is he going to be the next? This is incredibly lofty expectations, but is he going to be the next Jason Kelce? No. Is he going to be a 5 or 6 time Pro Bowler? Probably not. But what Matt Lee, I think, can do, and this is honestly to me the ideal NFL path for any young kid that wants to eventually get to the league. I think Matt Lee, what he can do is be that 5th, 6th round guy, be that guy that can occasionally spot start. A guy gets hurt, a guy pulls a hamstring, you need him to start for 3-4 games, whatever. But we'll put Matt Lee in. Matt Lee is the epitome of what teams need in today's NFL. He will be a guy that can start for a couple games. Now, I can't say I'd be thrilled with a 5th round rookie rolling in on the interior offensive line, especially a guy that has weight concerns on the lighter end with Matt Lee. That part definitely concerns me with Matt Lee's future moving forward. I think that's going to be a big limitation for him because I don't know how much more weight Matt Lee can actually add. And when you're hovering around 300 pounds on the interior, and there's a chance that you have to go up against a guy like Dexter Lawrence, who played in the ACC a couple of years ago at Clemson, who was 340 pounds. I mean, that's a significant weight disadvantage. But Matt Lee, just with the versatility that he brings at the position, along with the solid level of play, I think he's going to be a guy that hangs around the league for 5, 6, 7 years and collects those NFL level checks for 5, 6, 7 years. And good for him, man. I mean, that's the dream right there. And I think Matt Lee has a solid future ahead of him. And hopefully he's a guy that can get, maybe 30, 40 NFL starts in his day and then call it a career and go home.
Kind of what I see him and what you referred to him already as is kind of the ultimate backup, honestly, especially once he gets seasoned in the NFL after a couple of years. Rookie season's going to be a little iffy, it always is, especially if he's seen as a 5th, 6th round type of talent. But, guys like Matt Lee, we've seen it before. We've seen it 1,000 times. Sometimes these guys end up playing 8 to 10 years in the NFL because they're backups. They don't burn out. They don't get injured often. They do spot start. They come in and they play well enough to make sure that they get a roster, a spot wherever they go, a 53-man roster spot wherever they go in the NFL. And having that high IQ is very important as a backup. You don't want a guy who comes in and makes mistakes. And one thing that Matt Lee can do is come in and provide that high IQ at center, because that center to quarterback connection, it's very underrated topic. And if there's any type of disconnection there, it can be ugly, it can be a mess, and that leads to turnovers. And that's the last thing a team wants. So Matt Lee coming in with the high IQ, if he can come and sit behind a guy for 2 or 3 years, I think that's even better for him, honestly. I think that's even better for him. No need to toss him out to the wolves. But yes, absolutely, I believe that he will be an NFL player and he will be in the NFL for a while.
And you know, it's not, the center is not the sexiest position, right? Like, it's like we mentioned, it's a position that, you know, everyone needs, but a lot of people get drafted. And you mentioned Jason Kelce. He didn't start right away. He had to sit the bench his first year, maybe even his second year, I recall. But, you know, once it's their time and they get that starting role, you know, you can lock in, like Garrett mentioned, a nice few years in the NFL. You know, and a consistent role and deliver for the team, there's some nice paychecks there that eventually can lead to a very good NFL career. Last name in this draft class who I am also pretty high about. As you can see, I wasn't pretty high about Leonard Taylor. Javon Cohen, you know, interesting offensive lineman, product of the Alabama Crimson Tide, transfers over to the University of Miami. Technically his last year of college football. I think he could have came back for one more year, but you know, it was time for him to leave, and I get it, right? He plays so long, it's time to make some money. Really interesting prospect. This is one that I think has a lot of high upside, and I love players that come out of Alabama, because I think they run an NFL organization already internally, even the ones that don't make it at Alabama. Alvin Kamara, for example, even he's in the league. I mean, there's so many. Right. Garrett, what do you think about Javon Cohen?
Yeah, so Javion, to me, as much as I like the idea of Matt Lee just, you know, sticking around for a couple of years, I not only think Javon Cohen can play just, you know, 5 or 6 years. I think he has a chance to, you know, sit the rookie year out, essentially, kind of have a redshirt year in the NFL, and then I really don't doubt the idea of him starting for 2 or 3 years after that and see where it goes. I mean, Javion he has the weight, and as simple as this sounds, the weight is such a big part of an interior offensive lineman's success in the NFL. And I know, of course, with his podcast and everything, and of course, you know, his brother Dayton Taylor Swift and everything, that Jason Kelce's obviously going to get a lot more attention. It's just kind of how it is, but Jason Kelce is such an anomaly at what he does on the interior part of the line, whether it's guard or center, right? But Javon Cohen is a guy that's 300. He's north of 320 pounds. And the thing is, he's only 21 years old. He's going to spend most of his training camp at 21. He'll turn 22 in August. And we're talking about a player that was a second-team All-SEC player in 2022. So if you can show that type of potential and then back it up with a solid year for the Canes in 2023, guys, I'm all for Javon Cohen. I'm all for a draft and stash. And I saw somebody mention about Matt Lee being on the Eagles, but I wouldn't dislike the idea of Javon Cohen being an Eagle either. And I wouldn't even dislike the idea of him being a Steeler for a couple years. And recently, I know this is, you know, way off the Hurricanes specifically, but the Steelers had a guy a couple years ago that Kevin Dotson, they developed him in the 4th round. He was from Louisiana, and then Kevin Dotson got traded to the Rams, and he just signed a $50 million contract extension. So I don't doubt the long-term potential of Javon Cohen. He's a deep sleeper for me. He's a guy that, I mean, you don't really see a lot of discussion around Javon Cohen at all. And I think there is a lot of long-term potential for there. Believe it or not, I really, really like this class for the Hurricanes. There's a chance they have 5+ guys drafted, and Cohen specifically was a guy that started 37 games in college. So, I mean, you know what you're getting. And I think that with the fact that he's only 21 years old, he has a pretty considerable ceiling for a day 3 pick. I like Javion a lot.
One thing I'll say about Cohen definitely is NFL teams learned a lot about him due to the fact that he played completely different while he was at Alabama and then while he was at Miami. While he was at Alabama, he was a lot lighter. They wanted him more athletic there. He looked good, and he looked good at that size. He was very athletic for his size there at Alabama. He put on more weight and played heavy at Miami. And I think that that's going to benefit him going into the NFL. While it might have not been the cleanest transition right from the jump for him in college, adding that weight and used to being a little more athletic and getting around, as the season went on, to me anyways, it seemed that he got more comfortable playing with that weight. And how it is. I mean, more experience, the better things get usually, especially with a guy like him who has that kind of upside. I see Javon Cohen being the type of guy, especially in the NFL, if he stays healthy, he sticks around a long, long, long time due to his physical nature and due to the fact that he's got that talent. I mean, the talent is absolutely there. There's no doubt about it. I think that there's going to need to be, some seasoning. There's definitely, I would love to see him not even just a year, but maybe 2 years behind somebody, honestly. But by year 3, year 4, I think he'll be ready to cook in the NFL, and I think he'll be ready to cook for a long time.
Really interesting class by the Canes this year. Good quality group of guys for the heavy majority part. I think it's a solid class with definitely a few NFL players. One name that isn't a part of the current NFL draft class, but next year, in my opinion, is going to be a hot name. Even declared for the NFL draft without an agent and came back. Cam Ward, his story is so interesting, Garrett. He had one high school offer, guys, from Incarnate Worlds. That is not a culinary school. It's actually a Division I football program, I believe. Put up numbers. I mean, 40 TDs in his sophomore year. Transfers to Washington State. Puts up solid numbers there, 20-plus touchdowns. You're looking at 5 to 7 interceptions each year. Last year of football, instead of going to the draft, plays at Miami. There was some NIL magic going on there, no doubt about it, to reel him into the Canes. A lot of upside here. Garrett, my big concern with Cam Ward is ball security. He's fumbled the ball 46 times in his college career. Very raw player, in my opinion. We're going to see another year of Power 5 football if he can hold on to ball security. But I think he's got – good thing is that he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, and he has an incredible arm, high football IQ, very mobile. Not Lamar Jackson mobile, but he can take off and get you 10, 15 yards easily. Very interesting prospect.
No, I like Cam Ward a lot. Now, I dove into Cam a little bit. I did not, dive into it as much as I did, like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, and Jaden Daniels and everybody else in this class. But no, I like Cam's potential a lot. I mean, for him to go back to have another year to correct that fumbling issue. I mean, like the thing is I understand Canes fans that absolutely have the concerns with Cam Ward. There's times where he puts the ball in harm's way a little more than you'd like, but I mean, these aren't things that he himself doesn't know. These aren't things that he's not aware of. You know what I mean? So I look forward to a final year of Cam improving in not just one aspect of his game, but really every aspect of his game. I think there's a lot of potential here, and like you alluded to, he's a very athletic quarterback, and it seems like with Cam that a lot of the time on tape, sure, he's not burning by people like Lamar does and making those insane plays that Lamar does, but it seems like with Cam that whenever a defender's chasing him down, it seems like he is always just fast enough to get away. And honestly, like, I'm not making this comparison, although I will say that Patrick Mahomes is just fast enough almost every single time. And it feels that way with Cam too, which when it's a guy in your team, it's so fun to watch, but I'm looking forward to his final year with Miami, and he's absolutely going to be a guy that I will continue to watch and I will continue to evaluate. And I really hope he has another good year this year, because I wouldn't doubt that he sneaks into the first this year. I mean, he's only 21 years old. He'll play this year at 22. So if he has a good year, if he throws for north of 30 touchdowns, which is absolutely possible, single-digit interceptions, guys, I like Cam's ceiling a lot next year.
There's one word to me that kind of describes Cam Ward, and it's a word that I could use at any position. And then when I'm saying it, it means that I think that they have special upside. I see a playmaker. And when you have a playmaker at quarterback, special things can happen. That's where truly, truly special things can happen. This is an absolute dual threat. I love the fact that his legs are not just a gimmick. They don't just come out every once in a while. The dude can truly run the ball. He can get it in the end zone, and he can pass as well. So, I mean, we're talking about at least low turnovers from the passing aspect. As Paul brought up, he has to cut down on the fumbles. There's no doubt about it. But one thing that comes along with some of these young playmakers, and they're trying to make plays, these fumbles happen sometimes because they're fighting for that extra 2-3 yards that they might not necessarily need to fight for. But they learn from that, though. And I think coming back to college is giving Cam that chance to learn from that. And then to play in a totally different system gives the NFL guys another chance to go, hey, look, Cam can do it over here at Wazoo. He did it incarnate Word. He also did it at Miami. If he can do it at 3 places, hey, man, that makes the playmaker label even stronger for him, I think.
Garrett, have you seen a quarterback prospect that, has ball security issues? I mean, Cam Ward against a couple teams. I think Cal Berkeley, he fumbled the ball 4 times. There was another game where he fumbled the ball 3 times. Have you seen a quarterback prospect with that reoccurring issue? I mean, 46 throughout a 4-year season. That is a big number. I mean, not to go way too back, but like different positions. Mike Hart, for example, was a running back in Michigan. I don't think he fumbled the ball 1 time in his college career, for example. So, since you evaluate quarterbacks all the time, is that a rare commodity to see as an issue, or has there been other players that can overcome that fumbles issue?
There's one big one. You guys are probably not gonna like this comparison, at least from a pro angle. And of course, his hand size was just, I mean, it was everybody's just discussion. But it was Kenny Pickett during his time at Pitt. Kenny had 38 career fumbles, and Kenny, I mean, I could go down a 10-minute discussion with Kenny because I liked Kenny a lot coming out of Pitt. And I'm not going to go down that whole discussion, but the hand size was a big one for Kenny. And what I will also say is Kenny played in cold weather at Pitt that I can't imagine that Cam Ward will play in a lot of cold weather in Miami. I don't think the climate in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is the same as it's going to be down in Miami. But that was a big one. And Kenny's fumbles in the NFL were not a problem like they were in college. Now, there were a lot of other parts of Kenny's game in the NFL that didn't work out, but no fumbles. And even Kenny's during his final couple years at Pitt, he even worked on him. He went, just for reference here, he had 11 in 2018, 10 in 2019, and then 9 in 2020, and then 6 in 2021. So it gradually got better over the course of time. And that's the thing, is guys mature, they understand the game more as they get older, just from a mental aspect as well. And I think I would be pretty shocked if Cam Ward's fumbles don't decline significantly this year.
I think if, Cam Ward is, looking up to NFL guys and trying to see where he fits in the NFL and stuff, and guys who maybe have had similar issues that he's had and also have had similar successes that he's had, Russell Wilson wouldn't be a bad guy to look into, especially in his early years at the Seahawks. It really wouldn't be a bad guy for him to study on. It really wouldn't.
Yeah, I agree. That was an interesting comparison. I didn't, Kenny Pickett, similar kind of career length. I think he was at Pitt for 5 years. Cam Ward's going to be in college football for 5 years. So, yeah, I mean, and it really paid off for Kenny Pickett his last year at Pitt. He was a playmaker, right? At Pitt, cannon of an arm, made plays. I still think of that time where, he was running against, I think it was UNC maybe in the ACC title game. He
fake slide.
like he did like a fake dive.
Yep.
A great college player, no doubt about it. And Russell Wilson, I mean, went from NC State to Wisconsin for his final year of college football. So I really do like those comparisons, guys. And I think Cam Ward, for him to get that first round discussion, or at least top 3 rounds, 30 plus touchdowns, less than 10 INTs, right? I think that's where I think 25 and 7 interceptions, that's a good year, for example. 25 TDs, 7 picks. But I think if he really wants to make a name in college football, you got to get those 30-plus TDs, get those video game numbers out, have that big 3,000-plus passing yard. I think he's capable of doing that. So really looking forward to his final year at Miami. I mean, that's what he's getting paid for, right? The big bucks. Garrett, really appreciate your time today, man. A lot of good insight on the current draft class. We would love to have you back, for the following year. We'll talk about Cam Ward and other guys that hopefully have great years and they declare for the draft, or maybe they're just seniors and it's ready to go for them to hit the road at Miami. But really appreciate your time. Where can the good people find you again?
No, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on, and they can find me the YouTube channel Football Analysis. I also started a podcast recently, the Football Analysis Podcast, and I appreciate you guys having me on. And like I said, I am not like a devoted Hurricanes fan, but I really, really want them to return to prominence. I mean, I really want that for the sport, and I'm hoping Cam Ward can lead them to that.
I really appreciate that, Garrett. Yeah, man, we're really looking forward to having you on again. And thanks again for just dropping your knowledge on the current Canes draft class. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely. All right, Ross. Well, that was Garrett from Football Analysis. Really good insight, on the current draft class team, especially on Cam Ward as well. We're going to take this time to talk about the transfer portal. What's going on, guys? We have not been around for the spring game. If you listen to me a lot, I'm not a big practice person. I'll quote Allen Iverson all day on practice. Spring games are great, but the reality is that you got to win football games during the regular season. My overall assessment of this team so far and how we are looking at the transfer portal, we're going to go after a defensive tackle. We need someone at cornerback because cornerback depth right now is very, very small. I think in the spring we only had 4 cornerbacks in spring practice. So that needs to get beefed up a lot, in my opinion. We are going after Damian Martinez. It's either going to be Arizona or Miami. I'm going to keep it straight to the point. Ross, where do you want to start off with this offseason transfer portal buzz? I'm not going to tap into players who I think will leave. Because that's a whole different angle and different animal. I really want to focus on players we can bring in to this team to enhance it, because the reality is, last year we went 7-6, 7-5 regular season. I think this year we can hit that 9-3 mark, but how do you get over to that 10-2, 11-1? And if you go undefeated, you go undefeated, but how do you get through that 8-4, 9-3 mark? Right. And I still think we're very depleted at some position units. I mean, running back as a whole, that is a huge question mark. Yeah, we have a lot of bodies there, but a lot of inexperience. OK, Mark Fletcher, he was injured a lot last year. After that, who do you have that has a lot of game experience? Chris Johnson Jr. doesn't have a lot of game experience. We don't really have a veteran running back. Everyone left. So we need a Damian Martinez to come in as a leader and a veteran. Then you can mingle in the other guys, okay? The Jordan Lyles that is a freshman, a Chris Johnson Jr., Mark Fletcher as your third down power running back, okay? But Damian Martinez is the perfect fit to really lead that herd of running backs we have. What do you think about the running back group, Ross?
I feel the exact same way you do, and I feel that Damian Martinez, if he were to come into Miami, would take that lead-on role, kind of like Henry Parrish did when he came to Miami. He would take on that lead-on role for us due to his experience. I got to say, after watching some more of Martinez's film, I'm impressed, man. I'm really impressed. He kind of offers a little bit of everything. He's got some really, really nifty footwork and tight spaces. I was honestly surprised at how quick his feet actually move at his size. Showed breakaway speed. He was able to break away from multiple DBs when he got to the outside. He can run, between the tackles and run outside the tackles. He can break tackles. Once he gets to the second level, he can definitely run guys over. There's no doubt about it. He's not going to drag, 300-some pound defensive tackle, for 5 yards. But if he gets past that first level, he gets to the second level, he can definitely drag some guys for a while. And another thing is he can also be proficient in the pass game for us out of the backfield. and he can kind of run some, there. I wouldn't say he's a route runner, but he can run some minor routes actually. I would like to see him out there used in the pass game for us, just for the simple fact that teams can't just sit back and say, okay, when Martinez is on the field, we're absolutely running the ball. When Chris Johnson's on the field, we're passing the ball. I don't want us to have that kind of a setup at running back. I want these guys to all be able to do kind of a little bit of everything, and Martinez offers that. And one thing I forgot to mention too is he's pretty damn good at picking up blitzes.
No, I think, a running back that has over 1,000 rushing yards in the Power 5 level hits the portal. Whenever that happens, especially the position you're in at Miami, you got to grab him. I always say, throw the bag, right? But, no, I think you need to in this situation. Miami has been really utilizing NIL. This is an opportunity where you need to really utilize NIL to bring him to Miami, because we need help at the running back position. And I do believe the program will, if it doesn't work out with Damian Martinez, there's Penny Boone, who came from, I believe, Toledo to Louisville, left Louisville right away, which I don't really like that. If you transfer to a program, why are you leaving right away? Yeah. But I think that's another option. And then there's been some buzz about the UNC running back. I believe his name's Omari and O'Hampton. But that's kind of, shooting in the dark, right? But no, Damian Martinez, you plug him into this offense, to this team, that's a case where, hey, maybe, Miami, that's a legitimate offense right there. A healthy offense with those guys, Cam Ward, Damian Martinez. You have your wide receiver core with Restrepo and George. And then your tight ends, that's a different argument about utilizing the tight ends. But, that's a strong offense. On paper, that is a strong offense in ACC play, and especially week 1 in the Swamp as well. Don't forget that. We'll talk about that game in a later video, day. But, I think Miami getting Damian Martinez is going to be a nice addition, and it's us against Arizona. Ross, I talked about cornerback play, where I think we need someone from the portal. And Miami is looking to bring in someone at cornerback.
Yeah.
Mentioned D tackle. Am I missing on spots, or do you agree with me?
Yeah, I agree at defensive tackle there. I agree at cornerback, running back, like we spoke about. I think we do need to look into a wide receiver as well. It wouldn't hurt. Especially if we can find a guy with some height, length, and stuff, We lost our big, tall guys, So I think Isaiah Horton is going to play a much bigger role for us this season. At least I'm hoping he is. But I think getting a tall, or at least longer, wide receiver would be beneficial for the offense all around. And I'll tell you what, Paul, just the fact that we have a true, genuine dual threat quarterback, we're going to have more excitement in this offense. There's just no doubt about it in my mind.
I think we're going to get the wide receiver from Houston.
Yeah.
In the offseason, there's videos of him just playing, he's running routes. Cam Ward's throwing in the ball. I think he's
is he Sam something?
Sam Brown. Sam Brown.
Yeah.
He's coming over. I think he's going to come over. You can lock him in. I think Damian Martinez, let's lock him in, right, in our predictions. I agree. We need a tall wide receiver. Isaiah Horton's going to fill in that role as well. And like you mentioned, Cam Ward being that playmaking quarterback, he's going to make the wide receiver room better. Last year was a quarterback mess. We used 3 different quarterbacks in a season. I'm surprised we went 7-5 in the regular season. That's usually 500 football, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if we had an established quarterback last year, the entire year, that got you 25 TDs, 6 interceptions, 2,500 to 3,000 passing yards. Those numbers from 7-5 all of a sudden can easily get you to 9-3, right? Yeah. So it's little things like that changes a 7-5 and 9-3 season. And then there's things that change a 9-3 team to a 10-2, 11-1 team. And we got to identify that slowly but surely within this program. I think Mario wants to hit the home run this year, because running back play last year was not pretty. Okay. It was very injury depleted. A lot of rotation running backs that really were not home run hitters whatsoever. And so we got to bring in that home run hitter. So we bring in the Houston receiver. We bring in Martinez from Oregon State, right? Where do you see another name out there in the portal that you've noticed maybe Miami's been in contact with at cornerback, D tackle, or on the defense that you think Miami brings in, or Canes fans to really circle in?
Actually, a name that these guys, I had it written down here, a name that these guys are bringing up in the chat is the defensive back, Deani Hill. Honestly,
is he coming from a G5 program? I remember.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, no.
Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Eastern Kentucky. But dude, I mean, if you watch the film there, man, I mean, he's playing above level there. There's no doubt about it, dude.
Yeah. I'm looking for depth right now, right? We're not going to find a starting quarterback. I mean, starting cornerback this late in the process, right? We're looking for depth role players right now. That's what we're looking for defensively at cornerback. That's a very selective position.
Yeah.
Very selective position. Remember that. It takes time to develop there in the defensive scheme.
It's either you got the time to develop them or they're an absolute fit right away. You know, you got one or the other, but if you don't have that, things become a mess really quick in the backfield. We've seen that, dude. We've seen too many issues back there before, but thankfully, at least up front, we've got some experience, but we have to add some guys behind them, and I want guys behind them that have experience as well.
Now, hear me out. If we get to a situation where we bring in the enhancements on offense, right, from the portal, Cam Ward is going for a 35 TD year, 10 INT season, right? He's putting up video game numbers, and the offense is killing it. We are now in a situation where maybe our defense isn't that strong. I think it's going to drop a little bit because of safety play. Remember, the basis of Mario's football program is the trenches, right? Building out the trenches. Offensive linemen, we brought in a lot. Defensive linemen as well. He's going to build out the trenches. We bring in the quarterback. We bring in the receiver and running back. You have a very strong offense. Let's say your defense gives up 30 points a game. But if your offense can put up 35-plus points a game, you're looking at a Big 12-style football team, right? That's the way I see Miami's angle this year if they want to be successful in that getting over that 9-3 hump. If you put up offensively, if you're a juggernaut and just putting up 35 to 40 points over a game where teams have to beat you, if they're not matching that 45-point margin, of course, you're going to throw in some field goals, right? But if you can hit 40 points a game with an offense and your defense can make occasional stops, but your secondary is kind of flat, just average.
Yeah.
Hey, I think it could be a successful season. I think it could. And that could be an angle that Miami takes this year as a program. It's an identity. That Big 12 style offense football team where, hey, defense is lacking. It's not great. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes above average. Maybe decent at times in the secondary. Trenches gets the job done, puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, bails out the secondary at times. But if the offense really, with the enhancements we can bring in, I mean, that can be a winning formula for this team.
It sounds like we're absolutely targeting the Arizona State wide receiver, Elijah Badger. So that's another name to keep an eye out for right there,
I think Mario knows he has a quarterback this time.
Yeah.
He has resources at receiver. Restrepo, I mean, had 120 receptions. Jacoby George as well had a great year last year. We have the quarterback. We're going to make wide receiver play better. We need a veteran running back. Your third down backs, you'll rotate them in, and you have the O-line. I think offensively this could be a very good team. Now, defensive line, I'm not worried about. Okay, no. I'm not worried about that at all. Not worried about our linebacker play whatsoever. The Saint, Mauigoa, they're going to lock that thing down. Secondary, Misha Powell, I think that's going to be a great plug-in player. I thought that was a great pickup, and we saw it in the spring game.
Yeah.
Xavier Ridley from Vanderbilt, he's coming in. Is he coming in the fall, Ross, or I completely missed that from my negligence?
I don't know. I think so.
All right.
I do believe so.
So that's what I'm saying. There's questions in the secondary where that's where I see a big hole in this team that needs to be fixed. So getting in a cornerback from the portal as a role depth player is going to help this team out a lot.
The chat is saying Riley is in, so that's a good thing.
All right, so Riley's in. All right, good. You need him in for the spring practice. Like I said, I'm not an advocate of spring games. I saw flashes of Misha Powell. He looked good. That's all I need to see in a spring game, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need to see. He's healthy. He's running. He's very fluid. I think he's going to be a very good player. He's going to transition well. And he played at Washington that won a national title. We're going to be fine with Misha Powell. The rest, I got a lot of questions in that secondary. I got a lot.
I had being up here in the Northwest, I had a chance to watch Powell quite a bit, he's watching Husky games on the local TV, usually up here in Alaska. And I will say, man, when he hit the portal and he locked into Miami quick and we got him, dude, I was very, very happy with that pickup. To be able to bring in a guy who not only has success, but knows what it feels like and what it takes to actually win on a major level is something we need at the University of Miami. We need to teach and learn how to win at that elite level, dude. That's one thing that we've lost. I mean, we've gotten occasional big wins, but we need consistency at that. So we need guys who are winners. There are players out there that are actual winners. That's what we need at the University of Miami, are winners.
Miami does not have a winning culture.
At the
None
moment,
of the
no.
players in the program, besides, Misha Powell, other transfer portal players that come, like a Javon Cohen, come from Alabama, have smelled a winning culture. They know what that foundation is, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep,
When as a program, Ross, I'm telling you, when you win games consistently over time, when the going gets tough in the third, fourth quarter, you're down by 3 touchdowns, you don't panic. You don't lose the team on the sidelines. Everyone sticks together.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we've been in this situation several times before, right? That's building a winning culture. It's getting that winning experience that Miami has not smelled. And they haven't smelled it under Cristobal either the past 2 years at all. Not under Manny either. That's what we'll get into week 1 in the swamp in another time. But I'm telling you, man, build that winning culture. And then you'll start seeing wins more and more. And you won't see any drama in the locker room, on the sidelines. You won't see any arguments. You got to develop that winning culture, and that'll come over time. And it starts this year. I got them going 9-3 this year, 8-4, 9-3 range. I can see an 8-4 season. But I'm going to stick with my 9-3 prediction. You're going to come at me in the chat. That's fine. I predicted 7-5 last year. I don't miss. Okay, 7-5 last year. I can't predict a bowl game, but 7-5. All right. Now let's get to 9-3. Baby steps as a program.
Yep, I agree. I think with the additions that we've already made, have us on that path to that 9-win area. Honestly, I mean, we just need a couple more guys to fill in spots, and we can settle in kind of comfortably thinking with it. We are a 9-win team, and if we don't get there, then we have to start asking serious questions about coaches. When it gets to a certain point, when you have enough talent and the wins don't start coming in, then you got to have other conversations. But I truly believe if we get the right talent, we bring it in. We've got the right coaches, I believe, to develop these guys. It's just about finding that proper depth at the proper positions right now, dude. I think depth is going to be one of our biggest keys. We dealt with a lot of injuries last year, dude. We dealt with a whole lot of injuries last year.
Here's the thing, Ross, too, is that, year 1, we dealt with a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Year 2, we dealt with a lot of injuries. Like, there is an injury plague within this program.
Yeah.
That I don't know where the root causes of it. I can think of where the root cause of it stands from. And I've heard online and people I've spoke with who's highly involved in high school football recruiting. They've called out that root cause, but I'm not going to get into it on this show because we're not there yet. Right. Yeah. It's a new year. So let's not focus on the past. But if it continues being a problem, then I will mention the name. And I will mention the root cause of that. But we're not there yet, so let's give it time for year 3. But there is an injury plague problem in the program the past couple of years that, I think a conversation needs to be held. And, the videos are cute and all and getting excited, but, it's a problem that needs to be that's talked about a little bit more. And let's see if Mario addresses that, if that is an issue again in year 3, and that little mustache is getting annoying. I'll leave it at that.
It's all about being able to adapt, and if you can't adapt, you're not going to last long, dude. It's just the way it is. You got to be able to adapt, and not only adapt, but find ways to adapt while succeeding at it. You can't just adapt and stay mediocre, or adapt and fall backwards, or stay the same and fall backwards and just expect that things are going to be handed to you because you got a lot of energy. You know, this ain't the way it works. You got to get production, keep these guys healthy. If Miami stays healthy, I truly believe this is a 9-win team, just like you're saying.
We're still a couple injuries away, and injuries are going to happen in football.
Yeah.
They're going to happen. But if
Absolutely.
we get hit hard with this injury plague again, this is not a 9-3 football team.
No.
Not a 9-3 football team. Being healthy this year is very important.
Absolutely.
Very important.
Absolutely. Thankfully, we've got some exciting starters, multiple guys. We got some very exciting high upside starters, and we've even got some really nice depth pieces in certain areas already. It's just we don't have the depth fully yet, but we're getting there. We're tapping into the portal.
Ross, anything we did not discuss today? We covered a lot. Anything that we did not discuss that you'd like to bring up? Maybe we missed.
The only thing that I would say is I just I hope to whatever, the best of the best that's happening between Cam Ward and the current wide receivers that we have, and that they're building a bond, and that he trusts in guys like Restrepo to be his possession receiver, and he can look to guys like Jacoby George for big plays, and then we can add another guy in the portal as well. I hope those bonds are being made, and I'd really love to see week 1 from the jump, that nice bond between our possession receiver and our new quarterback. I'd love to see that.
I think Jacoby George is going to have a really, really good year. I think Restrepo, he's going to be a consistent receiver, kind of how he's always been at Miami.
Yep.
There's not going to be an issue there. Isaiah Horton, I think he's going to make a big jump as well. Hopefully we can start using tight ends. I'll have my opinion on the whole Elijah Lofton thing. We'll get there on another show.
He's unique, he's a unique player.
Yeah, but I get what everyone's saying, but you got to stick them somewhere and you got to use them, because I've seen this in the past at Miami.
Yep.
Where people say he's the best player. This guy's the best player on the field. It's not a good thing, in my opinion, when a true freshman comes in and he's the best player on the field.
Yeah, unless, you've got some kind of freak that no one else has seen in the last 15 years.
But I don't think that's Elijah Lofton, though. That's the thing. I don't think he's that freak the past 15 years.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think, will he be a good player? Let's see in his college career. Yeah. But we'll get into that conversation another time. But really appreciate, everyone joining us tonight. We have been on and off during the off season because it's the off season, and Ross is covering recruiting. He's doing his own thing. Ross, where can people find you if they don't have you on social media? They're not aware of this recruiting platform you're working on.
You can find me on Twitter at NorthFreshCane, and I'm doing recovering recruiting for Ryan Wright at his website. It's recruitingnewsguru.com, and it's also on YouTube as well. You can type in the same thing here, Recruiting News Guru, and our videos will pop up. Quite a few interviews on there from current guys who visited Miami recently.
And, the plan is, progressively as we get closer and closer to the season, we will be doing more and more content like we have done in the past. And, look forward to talking Canes football with everyone. Thanks again for joining the show. And always all about the U. Go Canes.
Go Canes.